Hello, Billy the Artist here, back with another How to Draw lesson, and today we are going to be doing Albus Dumbledore again, but this time Michael Gambon. Now we have done previously, we've got these, we'll talk about those in a second, we have done previously Sir Richard Harris from the first Harry Potter film. Again, that's in the Harry Potter playlist, lots of Harry Potter stuff, so check out the link for the playlist for the Harry Potter characters, and there's lots in there: Harry, Ron, Hermione, the Dark Lord, Sirius, Bellatrix. We also have Hagrid, there's Draco Malfoy, there's Professor Snape, and there's all the badges. There's lots and lots and lots on there for you to do and have fun on. Again, these are the most recent ones, so do check them out, share them with your friends. That would be fantastic. Please do like and subscribe, tick the bell to be notified when new videos are going to be released, and that will be good fun. But again, I use a grid pattern on here to help you to put your techniques down. That's what I've been doing, showing you the basics. Now, if you check out How to Draw Anything Part 1, link is up in the cards and in the description underneath. That will show you the absolute basics, how you can draw anything from a bird, a bee, a flea, a tree, a horse, a house, or anything else. That's what I say continually, and it's just a joy to encourage you with your drawing. Now, I take those techniques, and in my How to Draw playlist there are now over 130 lessons covering absolute basics right the way through to these portraits. And there is the How to Draw Portraits specifically playlist as well. But I like showing you how you can use basic shapes and a grid to actually do something that is very, very complex to most people. And I love breaking this down, and that's why I'm doing all of these videos. So do check them out and share them with your friends. So here we have, just putting those drawings safe, here we have an A4 piece of paper. If you check in the link and the cards and in the description right now, you'll see how to lay down the grids, and you see me in real time laying down this 2 centimetre grid. That's the 105 centre line. This is an A4 piece of paper. If you check the banner now, you'll see all the dimensions, all the numbers for the markings on this paper. I put these lines on a lot darker than you have to, just so that you can see them in this video. It really, really helps. Now, it's A4 paper. It's just normal drawing cartridge paper, just bog standard paper. It's just something that you can use. Now, I put these grids on to make it work. The 105 centre line is just so it works with the other How to Draw videos. That's why I put that on there, and I don't just start up in the corner with and then coming 2 centimetres across, just so it works with the other ones that I've done. But it just makes this very, very simple, and I just want to make drawing as easy as possible. Please use the hashtag #DrawingWithBilly as well, and share it with your friends. That would be fantastic. But now we are going to get on with drawing Professor Albus Dumbledore. Now I'm going to come in, and it's a 2B pencil. This is because it's getting a bit shorter, so you use these pencil extenders, and it allows you to get more life out of your pencil. So anyway, we are going to come in and just put basic shapes. So down to the 125 line, to the left of the centre 105 line, we've got a triangle for his nose. Well, like I say, you could draw the triangle right the way up. You can see where that goes. We've got those 2 lines above. Then we've got his glasses and his eye. So in the 105 to 125 line, I'm just putting a little rectangle in, and that's going to be his left eye. And then we've got this semicircle, which is going to be his glasses. Then you've got the bar coming over, and then we've got the glasses on the right side. Again, just a nice simple semicircle. In fact, we just need to bring that back a bit. That's the bar coming out to the edge. And then we want another little rectangle for his right eye in the 65 to 85 grid. Then above the 85 line, we've got, I'm just putting a big rectangle in, that's going to be that eyebrow. In fact, it's kind of parallelogram, it's just off a bit. And then further over from the centre line, we've got this massive triangle for his eyebrow there. Then as we come down, well, we'll go to the side of his head. And again, I'm just looking and putting shapes in. So we've got a rectangle here of this kind of dark hair, but it's a bit like a D. You can see the shape of the D. And then the hair comes out to the 185 line, and it comes all the way down to the 185. So we've just got this massive rectangle here of bright light. So I'm just indicating that large rectangle, and then we've got a triangle, and that's the hair there. And then we've got a kind of rectangle of shadow. Then if we come further up here, we can see coming over to the 65 line, you've got a rectangle for the top of the hat, and then you just want this little semicircle line coming over from the 145 to the 65, and that's the top on that shape. And then we can draw down this diagonal, like a diagonal box. That's the back of his hat, but here you can see it's got this little point inside, and then the kind of floppy bit at the back of his hat goes over, and we just want a little diagonal point there on the front. Now the side of his head is going to come down just to the left of the 65 line. That comes down to the 125. Now we're going to come over between the 65 and the 85 vertical. And now we've got, I'm just going to put a rectangle in there, a triangle in there, and we've got the rectangle for his mouth. And then a kind of rectangle on the side going over, and that's his moustache. And then the beard here, you've got a W. You can see, so it comes down, goes over the top of his chin, and goes up to the side of his mouth. It's kind of like two triangles, but you've just got that nice W shape. Now, as you come down, we've got his finger, and this comes across to the 145 line. So we're just looking, and I've got a rectangle to there. Put another little rectangle, which is going to be the nail, and then the top of his first finger comes down to about the halfway point. So we've got this other rectangle there. This is how simple it is. You see the hand, and the hand you kind of go, oh, that's a complex shape. Not really. You just break it down into rectangles and boxes and circles. That's the whole point of using these simple shapes. So there we've got the second finger, and then we want another rectangle going halfway between the 145 and 165. And then the third finger comes over to the 145 line, and a little bit goes past. But then you've got a triangle here. So you've got his ring on his finger. And then we've got a bar at the top, a little rectangle for that. And underneath, I'm going to draw a little oval. And then a rectangle up at the top. Now again, I've got my window open in my studio because it gets very hot in the summer. And again, I'm not sure, you know, my microphone is very, very good, but I'm not sure if you can hear any of the ambient noise. I can just hear somebody kicking off with a lawnmower right now, but if you can, and you can hear kids playing, it's because everyone's working from home or furloughed or whatever it is that they are doing. So anyway, now we've got the hand here that comes down to the centre line. It's just a triangle shape there. Now here we've got, you see you've got a triangle there, but then we can just curve that over. You can see we've got a little triangle in that box, but it just curves over and then comes down. So you've got a kind of rectangle shape with just a nice curve on the top, and that's coming off his cuff of his sleeve going up over his hand. Now the right hand, the edge of it comes down to halfway in between, and then we've got this rectangle of his thumb going up behind the back of his beard, and then we've got this diagonal that comes up and over between, and you've got this cross point on the 65 vertical and the 185 horizontal, and this comes up to the side of his face there. Then we want this rectangle for his hair on the side, how this comes up to above where his eye is on the 85 line, and we can see where that comes out. So that's the shape of the hair. Then we've got his shoulder just below the 165 line, and you can see that's in line with where his finger is. So you've got the shoulder at the back, and the same on this side. Now we want this bright light just coming down, coming underneath the finger, and then we've got a triangle coming off across there. Now again, right on the 165 line to the right of the 165 vertical, we've got a little circular metallic piece. I mean, we'd say it was a presto, but obviously it's just some kind of embellishment. Then we just got like these lines coming down. Then more of the fabric, and then we just got some of the shape of his hair, just some wavy shapes. If we just put a line in the centre, that's going to be the centre of his mouth. So there we've got a very kind of boxy outline down for Professor Dumbledore, but I'm just going to add a couple more details from the, just follow the curve of that. And again, we've got the edge of his hat, and that's going to be covered in all of that pattern as well. And then we've got another line halfway through. Then you've got that strong highlight on the side. That comes over. We just need to bring that over a little bit. And then again, this is just, you can faff about doing this as much or as little as you want. We've got the hair there. And then here, I'm just indicating from the 125 to 145, you've got the edge of his glasses. Again, the same on this side, coming off from the edge of the hinge on the glasses, his half moon spectacles. So now we've just got the very, very basic shapes. That's a basic outline down of Professor Dumbledore, and then we can start getting a proper correct outline down in the next part. So now we're going to come in and we are going to start the outline, and I use this piece of paper to stop me from smudging everything that's down there already. Now again, remember, I put these lines down, even these outlines, much darker than you have to, just so as you can see. Now it just makes it easier. If you draw them on lighter, it makes it easier to rub them out. The grid lines and even some of your construction lines don't have to be as dark as I put them down. I just do this totally so that you can see everything that we're doing. Now we are going to start with his glasses, and I'm going to start with this hinge on this side, and you can see it's just to the right of the 125. So I'm just drawing the very edge of the hinge. It's kind of long and thin. It's got the highlight, and then we've got arm of the glasses that comes off the corner and goes right up here. Now the reason I'm doing this is if you go over the other videos, you actually see that I don't start in exactly the same place all the time, just to show you. I mean, you could start in this corner and work all the way across, or you could start there, or you could start down here and work your way up. You could start with the mouth or a fingernail. It doesn't matter when you use this system. And the reason I put these shapes down first is so that you actually get used to drawing the full shapes in. You could just start with a grid and do the line straight away. And I might do that on a video just to show you that it's that simple to use a grid. But by putting these shapes in, you're getting used to proportions. Your hand and eye are working together to get proportions in. So now we're going to do the glasses on this left glass of his half moon spectacles. So you can see we've got the construction lines in, and I'm just looking, and it comes out, you've got this kind of little triangle that just comes over the centre line, curved down the side. So you think like a C shape as that comes around, and you can see and just follow it, and that line comes down and curves around, comes up past the 125 line and joins the edge. Now I'm doing all of this with a 2B pencil. If I was doing my portrait time-lapse videos, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle and Avicii and people like that, if you check out those, Shaku Cannon Mason, I would use a click mechanical pencil because it keeps the pencil line perfect. But I'm just doing this so you can see what you can do with a normal pencil. I'm going to try and do it as quickly as possible, but just keep looking. So now we're doing the top part of the frame of the glasses where that curves over. Now, on about, just above a third, you've got the bar over the centre of his nose. So we're just doing that slight curve on the top of it, and that curves over, and then coming underneath the 105 line, dead on the centre, you've got the little plastic bit that sits on his nose. And this is one of the interesting things that I really like about the movies. So you kind of look at it and you think, would Albus Dumbledore have glasses from Specsavers? That's just a little bit of fun. You kind of think, would that little bit of plastic really be there? But this is literally the magic of cinema. We accept these things and it works. And I just think it's absolutely brilliant. You'd think there'd be a little bit more wizardy, there wouldn't be a modern piece of plastic on there when you look at everything else that's about Professor Dumbledore and Hogwarts and things like that. Anyway, back with the drawing. So we're now doing the right lens, the frame around the right lens. So anyway, curve. We want this to curve over. You can see they're kind of horizontal and level together, and his eyes behind the lenses are not. And it just comes past the 65 line. So, gonna curve, just twisting the pencil to try and keep it sharp, curving that over, and then the line across the top for the metal frame. Then this curves down just underneath the 105 line, horizontal, curves across, and then goes up past the 85 line to join in the corner. Now we do the second line, just following the curve. Now, I didn't sharpen my pencil after doing all that, it's getting quite blunt. So really I should have sharpened that for these very fine lines. Now, the edge So we've got the corner, the hinge off the edge of the glasses. And then we want the arm going up into his hair. Now, as you can see, we've got this big shape of the nose. We just put that in very, very quickly. So if we come down here, you've got like a D. And that's about halfway. So you've got this D shape at the side of his nostril. And that curves down to touch the 125 horizontal line. And then we've got a V shape, which is the centre of his nose, separating his two nostrils. It's like a bird flying. And that just curves. And then we can put the dark of the nostril underneath. And then the side of his right nostril touches the 85 line. And then you can see the shape of his nose going up and the shadow cast by the edge of the glasses, the rim of the glasses. And then just curve the top of that for his nostril on that side. Now, we just need to push the line of that nose over a little bit. Now, we've got the shadow on the side of his nose. And this comes from right up the top. So we've got this nice shape that comes down. So here you can see we've got a triangle. And that's the shape of that shadow. And then it curves and follows the form of his nose at the bottom. So you've got that D there, you've got the front of a D there. So imagine, you've got the D on the centre line. But we haven't got the centre line, so just imagine the vertical. But we just want that curve for that shadow on that nose. Now, following this triangle up, the curve of the upper part of his eye socket where his eyebrow is. And then we've got this massive eyebrow. So I'm just doing pointy zigzag lines just to indicate where the eyebrow actually is. It's just a massive eyebrow. And my dad is an old gentleman, and his eyebrows would be like this right now, but he has to keep having them trimmed. So it's great. They are getting like this because he hasn't trimmed them himself during lockdown. So when I do get to see my dad, it's he is doing a bit of he does have a shave. He hasn't got the beard, but he's channeling a bit of Professor Dumbledore. So that's good fun as well. Anyway, I hope you're still smiling through all of this that we're going through. Anyway, so there at the top of his nose coming up, we've got that first crease between the top of his nose and his forehead. And then we've got the same here. So we can see a little kind of rectangle of shade. And then the line of the crease goes up. And the edge of his nose curves out. So you've got this kind of V there, or a big U shape above the brow of the glasses. And then his eyebrow curves, comes past the 65 and then goes off to the side there. Again, I'm just doing the big bushy bits at the top inside that shape, and it comes down and curves underneath. And that's creating the shape of his right eyebrow. Now his eyes. So we've got here this rectangle above the left lens, the left spectacles. And we can see that from one side to the other, the eye fills the lot. But we've got a curve. So I'm just bringing the curve around, nice wide shape. And it comes up to about the halfway point. And here you've got a V on its side. And then his eye comes over fairly flat, his upper eyelid. But then right in this corner, we've got a lot of dark. And then his eyeball is in the centre. So we've got the curve of the outer iris coming down. Then we've got like a 2-point highlight. So I'm just drawing a rectangle of light to leave that in. And then you've got his little pupil in the centre. The dark above. And I'm just filling in his iris with a little bit of shade. And then we can bring that shadow over. Then we've got his tear duct. And that gives us the shape of Professor Dumbledore's eye. Now, if you come off here, we've then got the crease underneath his lower eyelid. We've got a crease line above the top. And then just to the right of the 125 line, you've got the edge of his eye socket that goes up. And then we've got this shadow, fantastic. And this is the thing, the shadow cast by his glasses and down the side of his face really makes this drawing. And it'll make it work really, really well. And now we want to carry the shape of his nose down. So we did the 2Ds there. We've got another one. You can see that the shadow comes out to about 1/3. And then we bring that shadow further down. And then we've got the shape of the glasses. That curves across the edge. This is just underneath the 105 line, and then that's going to curve down to where it joins the shadow on the side of his cheek. And there you can see we're already getting Professor Dumbledore starting to look out at us. And we got just indicating the bit of the shape on his upper left eyelid. Now we're going to do the same for the right eye. Now the glasses fairly horizontal, but you can see where his left eye is right above the frame, his right eye is not, it's higher. And you can see how the edge of it is touching the 85 line, but unlike the two edges on this one that go across the box completely from 105 to 125, we're not that far over on this one. We don't come to the edge. It's a thinner kind of shape. So we need the curve underneath inside the rectangle that we put in. And then you've got a bit of vertical where the tear duct is. And then it's not like there you've got that V. This one is kind of just nicely curved over the top. And that comes right over. And then you've got the edge of the eyelid in the corner of the eye. Now, his iris, we can see we've got just inside from the 85 line. And then we want his pupil. And leaving that little bit of a highlight. So I'm indicating the pupil. Now I'm going to shade in his iris as well. And then we've got a little crease coming off to the side of his nose. Kind of a little bit of a rectangle. Just indicating the creases off the side of his eyelid, on the side of his eye socket where that curves around. And then there's a lot of highlight, there's a lot of light here. So that's, even though there are creases and like the bag under his eye there, we've got that little U shape, they're not dark shadowed creases. So I'm just indicating them very carefully and lightly. But now we bring down, you can see we've got a C, a capital C shape here. And this is the shadow cast by the right frame of these spectacles, his half moon spectacles. So there you've got that C shape. You've got the corner hinge that comes off, goes above the 105 line. You've got the actual hinge itself, big kind of a little blobble there, and then the line carries on and goes off up the side. And that's, now we've got Dumbledore's eyes starting to look out at us. So now we're doing the moustache, just following the shapes that we've put in, following that diagonal line. And there you've got, here you can see we've got a V now. So coming off the top of his moustache and then going up the beard, you've got a V shape there. And then this comes up the side of his cheek, where his hair comes down. Now we've got the top of his upper lip and the bottom of his moustache. I'm using the bottom of the moustache because that's the kind of furry, hairy bit to create the shape. But in between the 105 and the 85 line, we can actually see the top of his mouth. And it curves over, and then you get the dip in the middle. And then it's not quite horizontal. It's just off the horizontal. You've got this nice curve between his two lips. You've got that shadow there. And then his bottom lip is just slightly curved. So I'm not drawing that in as dark because it's not as pronounced as the centre of his mouth. And then coming off to the left of his mouth, it curves down. So we can just bring that shadow up. And then it really comes down on this side, just across the 85 line. And then you've got the top of his lip that comes down. Indicate a little bit of the moustache. And then you just want to fluff the moustache out over the top. And it comes down past the third line here on the 145. Just to the right of the 65. And then again you've got this V going up the side of his cheek. So there you've just got a nice V shape going up into the hair. Now just indicating the direction of the hairs on his moustache, and then we come down and we've got this W. Just indicate some of the way the hairs go, and you can see how he's stroking his beard with his hand. He's pulling it over in that direction. So draw the direction of the lines of the beard in the way that they grow. That's how simple it is. Hair, beards, moustaches, draw it in the way that you go. I often get comments saying, oh, can I do a tutorial on hair? Every portrait where someone's got hair, apart from someone like Lord Voldemort, there's a hair tutorial in it. And it's just draw it in the way that you go. And that helps it look more natural. So here we're bringing this down above the hand. And there we've got Professor Dumbledore's face and beard really starting to look the part. So now I'm going to come up and we've got this hair up in the top. And we've got a D shape there. So we've just done that little, it's like an S at the back, and then you've got this D shape. And then over the 85 horizontal, just a nice little curve as that comes out. The hair comes down, you've got a bit of a V there, and then it just kind of swirls around. And so here we've got the hair to the side of his head. Coming right down on the 145, we've got where the highlight starts. And there's a little V of shadow there. Here we've got indication of a bit of shadow. And then the hair as it cascades down at the back with all of this fantastic highlight. we'll just leave that bright. And then you've got his shoulder here where it crosses the 185. You've got that bright highlight showing, and then we've got coming down past the 205 highlighted hair again, and that comes up here. We've got a diamond. You can see a bit of a diamond shape, and that'll help us. And then we've got these curls. You've got this fantastic curl coming down, but I'm going to draw 2 rectangles. So there's 2 rectangles, and there's a 3rd rectangle, and then you just turn that into a curve, and that's the curve of that hair going up. Then we've got the edge of his beard between his 2 fingers, and that comes right across this cross point of the 145 and 185 in the V between his fingers. So now if we do the same for the hair on this side, we've just got a C shape there as that curve comes down. Got this by the side of his cheek. Again, just do another C, and you've got that kind of curve that comes down. Then a D. So it's like, well, there you've got an S as it comes all the way down past the 185. And it curves around and back under. Here you've got some C shapes coming up past the 145. There's a C, that's the outer edge of the hair going up. Where it's a bit brighter, you've got that nice back highlight as well, and side highlight. And coming off the top of his head, you've got this diagonal coming down, and then you've got the hair coming out, and just follow the curves. Then we've got just some wispy bits that float around. And there we've got all of the face and the hair, the outline down, and we've got the rest of his hand and his clothes and the hat to do. Just sharpening the pencil. And now we're going to come in, if I can get my chair close to the drawing. Now we're going to come in and we're going to do the hat. So starting on this right hand side on the 145 line, and it's below the 25. And we can see how the curve just goes up, goes through the kind of halfway point. And it's nice fabric, so it's not a solid curve. You can just be a little bit wobbly and wiggly. So as this comes up and over, then we've got that little dent that comes across the centre line, and then it just keeps going over on its trajectory down, goes across the 85, comes across to the 65, and just kind of goes out past the 65 line, and then starts to come out lower past the 45. We've got this kind of diagonal trajectory. Need to come about halfway, and then that comes over. We've got this kind of bobble shape, and then this comes right the way down, curves underneath, and then goes back up on about the 3rd. And then you can see we've got some patterning lines coming down and around. We've got the kind of, is it a bell? You know, like the end. Looks like a little bell, a little ornament on the back of his hat. So we've just got that little shape. I'm just indicating where the highlight is. Now, the centre of his hat, sorry, the edge of his hat is to the right of the centre line between the 45 and the 65. And that goes up, and then just kinks in and comes back across. Now we want this bottom part of the hat that comes up, and the patterning seam comes across right the way past the 125 line, And that's where we've got that kind of really strong highlight and shadow. The edge of the hat comes down, curves out, and then comes down to join where the hair is. Now we've got this fantastic bright highlight on the side of his hat. And that goes up, got a little point that comes down, then goes right up to the top of the hat. Now the bottom of his hat, we're going to start from the 125, 65 line, right on the cross point. You can see how that just curves ever so slightly. And then we can just see a little bit of his forehead, how that comes across and then goes through the 85, 65 line. Comes across, just comes down that little bit above the top of the hair. Now we've got all of this fantastic pattern, and you can see here we've got a W between the 85 and the 105. So we've got all of these shapes, and you've got like V's and W's. So if you kind of look at it as a V, and that one looks more like a circle, so you've got these like V teeth pointing up, and then this one is kind of a bit of a circle on those two happening. So you've got 2 points and then a circle. So now we've got that V there, and that comes across to the 125 line, and then you've got the kind of circle one, and then this is in the darkness. So we've just got 2 points there, and that's the shape of that pattern. So here, by just to the right of the 65 line, we've got that shape, and you're kind of looking, and it's like they're almost a bit like stars, but we've got those 2 points there again. But the edges, they're almost like the kind of 5-pointed stars that you would have stuck on your school books from years ago. But again, that's just creating the pattern that we're going to see all across this hat, and that'll come in with detailing in. So here again, there we've got that V shape. In fact, that needs to come down a little bit. And we've got the kind of circle that's just above, and then we can indicate those patterns. Now the braiding as it comes around, here we can see we've got 1, 2, 3 kind of standing out. Then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the next section to the right of the 105 line. So I'm just going to put 1 in the centre. And then you've got another 2 there. And then, excuse me, frog in the throat. As we come down to the 65 line, we can just indicate those shapes, and the same for that braiding as it curves over. We need to bring those points down a little bit. And then just indicate where that highlight is on the centre. Now, I'm going to come down and we're going to do the cuff here. And we're going to start from the 65 245 line. And it just curves up, goes up to a high point there, and then curves across the 85 line. And we follow the shape down, through the horizontal, and then it curves across and comes down to a point here. Now we drew that line in, but you just carefully and observantly follow the line of that hem stitching, and then you can draw the connection, the underneath line where the edge of the stitching joins the fabric. Again, we've got a kind of dotted line that follows the same line underneath. Then we've got this lovely dark shadow. So we've got this fold that comes over, comes down right to the bottom. And then you've got the cast shadow creating that little shape underneath. Follow the shape down. Here we've got a circle, another circle, and then that kind of gold braiding going off. Then we've got his thumb. So now his thumb just to the right of the 65 line. You see how that curves up and goes up just to the right of the centre line. We've got the rectangle shape in, but when we actually put the correct line in, it's a little bit different, and it goes underneath the beard. Again, the thumb line underneath the beard, but we just indicate where the thumb is. The side of his hand, that's placed in about the right place. Then you've got the knuckle, little curve for the shape of the knuckle. And then the first section of the finger going up to the joint goes right up to the 185 line. Now I'm just bringing my paper in so I don't smudge the drawing, and we curve over. In fact, I'll put the fingernail in. So the fingernail comes between the 165, 185 lines here, but comes right over to the 145 line, but doesn't go over it. It's got that nice point at the edge. Kind of almond shaped. But rather than being fully curved at the back, you can see it's more squared off. And then this knuckle comes out, comes across. Then you got the finger underneath, comes under, comes over about halfway between the 125 and 145 line, comes across the 125 line, and then just curves down to the join with the second finger. And we've got that crease where it comes up to where the joint is. We've got a kind of fantastic circle shape there. And now the finger, it's not horizontal, it's going up slightly, ever so slightly. So we go over the 145 line, and then you've got the next joint, then you've got the fingernail. So you can see this little rectangle here. And then you've got the finger that curves under, comes back, and then comes down to where it joins the hand and the knuckle at the top. Third finger comes out. Then we've got this ring, this fantastic T-shaped ring. So I'm going to follow, and you want that to curve, and curves around the outside of the finger. See where that presses up? And again, follow the curve around just inside the 145 line. And then you want the edge of the T and that's the shape of the ring doing most of the work for the finger. Now again, this finger is going down into shadow, so you've got the joint there just over the 145 line, and then you've got the next section. If you just curve it going into the dark shadow of the underneath of the fabric. And the same, we've got this ring on his little finger. We've got this oval. Comes up to about halfway. Just touches the 2, 4, 5 line. Then you've got the shape, how it comes around. You've got the curve that goes through the centre of the 2, 4, 5 horizontal line around the finger. And then the metal work is just curved around the edges. And again, you've got the finger going into the dark. So you can just slightly indicate that. And then coming off from the bottom of the 3rd finger, curves down just to the right of the 1, 2, 5 line. Now underneath of the hand comes out from the little finger, and then the side of the hand comes down, goes through about halfway, and then curves underneath. And then we've got this shadow that's coming down, and the shadow off the hand onto the top. And then here you've got the shape of his beard underneath. You've got this little pendant right on the 1, 2, 5 line and 2, 8, 5, and then you've got this little V with the 2 links. Then you've got that link going up, and the beard curves out and curves underneath. Like I say, we've got that jewel on there, and some of the lines of the fabric. Now again, up here we've got another kind of jewel in the fabric. And that's our outline down on the grid. So now we're going to rub out the grid lines and some of the construction lines. So that we can actually start work on filling in the shading of Professor Albus Dumbledore. Again, I'm using this large and pressing on quite hard. I'm just going to hold this down with this blank piece of paper. I use this large Mars plastic eraser. It's just one that I like using. There are lots of different makes out there. It's just one that I've enjoyed using over the years, and I've tried lots and lots and lots, and they're all different kinds, but you just get used to using the same one over and over again. So see, like that, I've just rubbed out his shoulder, the shoulder line coming down. So let's just put those back in. Now, I can rub out these kind of larger areas, like I've just went straight through there though and rubbed out a lot of my working. But if I start using this around his eyes, we're going to run out of, I'm just going to rub out a load of the work that I've done. So I've got a Mars plastic and a pen, same kind of thing, just clean the end on my jeans. And this is a little bit more controllable, allows me to get in. So you can see there and remove the rulered on lines from inside the detailed areas on his eyes and his nose, there across his cheek, top part of his upper eyelid, the eyebrow. It's just great because you can remove with good accuracy these construction lines that you don't want to show. Now I've also got a battery powered eraser that allows me to remove, it's a bit finer than this, very detailed areas. Might not have to do it with this, but then again I might. we'll have a look. But I just need to rub all of this out first. So these ones in the beard, you know, because they're just general construction lines in the way that the beard is going, it's not too much of a problem thinking that I'm actually going to be removing those lines. But like here, on his lips and inside his moustache, by the side of his nose, it's just good to be able to remove that quite accurately. Inside the fingers, it's where that knuckle is, and that's just nice and simple to be able to remove them. Inside those creases, up to the edge of the paper, in the highlights on his hair. In and around the cuff. And this is the thing with the drawing, it just takes a little bit of a while to do your preparation, but this is the foundation part. You get this right, the rest of it really is just colouring in. Just removing some of these grid lines from inside his hair. And then the fabric. And again, I'm now having really covered the image with a lot of spent eraser. We need to brush it off. Again, I used to just sweep this on the floor, which then meant I had to pick it up. I'm just using a big brush, just a very large old brush. And it just allows me to sweep this off. And I'm sweeping it onto a piece of paper that I can then just tip it into the bin nice and easily. And I can see already that I've missed some of the lines. So, I hope I'm just knocking a ruler off the desk. So here now, right, in fact I'm going to come in, no, I'll miss that one there, right up at the top, use this. And down on the cuff, can remove those inside that finger there across the hair. It's quite a big one to leave on. But again, I draw these lines on very dark so you can see them. Now I'm coming in with the battery one. It'll allow me to pull out very, very detailed and carefully around the eye because I don't want to lose the drawing. So you can see I can just actually take out those unwanted lines with good accuracy. Now you can get very small pointed rubbers like this, which is just as good. Inside the ring, inside the finger. And then inside the hat. And that bit inside that highlight. And there we have our outline down of Michael Gambon as Professor Albus Dumbledore. Now we've got to shade him all in. Anyway, I hope you're having fun. This is really good. We'll get on to the next part and shade all of his face and his skin in. So now we're going to shade in Professor Albus Dumbledore. And we're going to do this rather quickly. And we can see we've got the strongest highlights in here. So I'm using the flat side of the 2B pencil And we're just going to cover a lot of the skin. And I'm just putting this general tone right the way over. And we've got the stronger highlight here. So I'm just trying to carefully add the shadow where I need it, and the highlights will not fill in as dark. So I'm just filling in the tone of the eyebrow as well. Now we're just coming down. We did the darker down the side of the nose where that shadow is, coming underneath. And then right down the side of his nose, a bit lighter. Now I'm not twisting, leaving a highlight down. I'm not twisting the pencil around, so I'm just keeping the flat side, and it'll get flatter as it goes down. Around his eye. And that top eyebrow. And we need just a little bit more tone on that side. Then the eye inside the glasses. Then coming down the side of his face, we've got the shadow caused by the line from the nose, the crease line by the cheek coming down to the side of the mouth. Now, just filling all of that in. Now I'm just going up and down across his moustache, then down the side of that cheek. Again, we can make this shadow just a little bit darker. And then down the side of the eye. And then up over the top of his forehead. And you can see I'm holding the pencil way off at the end. And by having such a length, it makes you be a little looser in your actual drawing. There's the crease underneath the eye, coming over the top of the eyebrow. And you can see straight away we're just getting some nice three-dimensional form on Dumbledore's face, coming down his side of his chin. Then we've got underneath the upper lip, then his lip, lower lip, and that's got a highlight on it, but and then you've got the shadow underneath, and then it gets a little bit darker down the right hand side. Now all of the hand, you've got some highlights down here, but all of the hand is toned in. And then we've got a highlight here. You can see the strong light coming in on the left hand side of his face, and it highlights the end of his first finger and a little bit on top of the second finger. But we'll pull that out using the putty rubber. So carefully filling in some of the ring to the finger. Ring going into the dark. Now we've got the hand coming down. Just filling all of his hand in, and then the thumb that goes behind his beard. Now, again, just using the side of the pencil, still not turning it. We're doing the shadow underneath the first finger, where the joint is, coming up to his hand. Now here we've got a vein, so I'm just indicating where those veins are and the tendon raising up, and then we've got this vein here. So we've got the little shadow in between the two fingers where the knuckles are, then you've got this vein that just comes down his hand. shadow between the third and little fingers. Now we've got a shadow on the second finger. Now I'm leaving the ring quite a bit because that's got highlights on, lots of little bits, so we'll detail that up a little bit later. And then you want underneath the right hand. There, very quickly we've just filled in a lot of tone just on his face and on his hand. So going in the right direction of the hair, we're just looking and we're just filling in lighter tone where this comes down. We've got that highlight above the fingers, but then you've got his beard that's coming down, and we just need to fill all of this in. That hair coming down over his shoulder, over onto his clothes. Now again, we want to fill the tone coming down of his beard where it comes through his hand. But you can see we're just putting the strokes in the direction of the beard. And unlike the face, I'm not going to fill everything in, because we'll smooth that down, and as we add more detail, that will detail up more of his beard. So we need a darker shadow underneath those two fingers, and the same down here. So I'm drawing the shadow first underneath the hand. This is all still with a 2B pencil. And then the beard coming down in between that little kind of, is this a beardness or like a necklace, a beard lace? Who knows? That little jewel and chain that's holding his beard together. Anyway, so that's now down there. We've got a lot of patterning actually in this cuff, but we'll add that later. And again, this will all be very, very loose. And my arm is free. I'm just pivoting from my shoulder, and it just allows me to fill in large areas very quickly. And it doesn't matter if you just go over little bits, because you're not looking down here, we're looking up here. So filling that area in, and again we've got the same with the hair coming down on this side. We're going to look and follow the shape of the hair. So you've got that shape at the top, then you've got a curve here, that C shape, a bit darker behind the edge of his beard, and that curves down over the shoulder, and then it just starts getting a bit lighter towards the edge. Now here you've got an S, so you can see there we've got an S shape, and then it repeats down, comes over the back of his shoulder. And then hair coming off up at the top, just plinging up, and then right up into the corner of his forehead above the arm of the glasses. And then that comes down there. Now again, if we just quickly fill in the tone of the fabric, just giving it a good general overall tone fill in, it'll help us. Now again, when we come to doing more detailed stuff, I will be putting the paper down to rest my hand on. So now here where we filled in that hair, that's going to be highlighted. So we're just filling in the tone of some of the fabric. Where that comes up, we've got a little bit of darker tone. Now, I'm just using a 2B pencil at the moment, but this very dark area, it'll definitely be a 4B pencil, might even be an 8B. Now, when I do my full portrait drawings, the time lapses, I'll use a 2H, a 6H, and a 2B, 4B and an 8B. And I use those because it allows me the variety of tone that I want. But for these, I just use this 2B and a 4B most of the time, and then an 8B for like these areas, and it just makes it work better for me. So again, like this area here is going to be very, very dark, but I'm just indicating a lot of the shadow, and I still haven't turned the pencil over, so I've got this nice flat side, but we're getting to a point where, and here we've got a zigzag, so you can see a zigzag there, 1, 2. But I'm getting to a point where the pencil is wearing out. And I'm going to start scratching the paper with the actual wood if I'm not careful. I'm just hoping I can fill all of this in before I need to sharpen this pencil. So now we've got the kind of bobbly bit at the back that's hanging over. We can bring that right the way over. And we've got the same in this patterning here. So it's kind of darker underneath. Here we've got this little kind of band, then gets a little bit lighter. But we can, if you want this to be exact, you have got to do that. It'll take you a long time to do everything, the hat, the hair, everything. But I'm teaching you how to be kind of expressionistic, and just by making marks, how you can show and indicate the pattern. So I'm just filling that in as it comes over, comes down the side of his head. Now we've filled all of that in, and so now I'm just going to come in with a piece of kitchen roll, just find a cleaner area, and I'm just going to smooth everything in just quickly. Now this is just a technique, you don't have to, you can just carry on building up with pencil lines if you want, but at this first stage I do this, and you can actually obliterate the pencil lines completely and just work to a smooth tone. But I actually it's just something that I've developed that I like doing. It just gives that way on the face, and especially on the hands now. It just means I've completely smoothed the graphite into the paper, and then we can take off some with a putty rubber and pull out the highlights, and it just works really well. Now again, if I just do this, you can see how that's just softened all of that tone, which is great for that fabric. But you still see some of the pencil lines. Now in the beard, I'm following the direction of the beard, and the same with the hair, but I'm not trying to rub it in as smooth as I did with the skin. So here up on the top where his hair is, I can then use the graphite that's on the kitchen towel to just smooth some of the shadow into those highlighted areas. And do you know, I think I'm going to just push some of the pencil right off around the edge. So I'm using this now, I'm picking some of the graphite up and just being arty, just pushing it round the back so it'll make the highlights stand out, rather than using a pencil. I'm literally just pulling up some of the tone, and there you've got a background covered in. Now you can actually get graphite powder where you can fill large areas in, like we've just done. You just sprinkle some on, you can spread it around with a brush, but that's actually quite good. I'm just smoothing those bits out, the fabric down on the right hand side. And that's a lot of tone all down already. Now, if I come in with a putty rubber, again, I'm using 2 now. That's what they normally, that's a bit cleaner. It was new, but that's how it happens when you use a lot of them. And so I'm going to come in with the used putty rubber first and just pull off a lot of the highlighted bits that we need, just very quickly. So here you can see I'm just pulling off, because we've pushed the pencil over it and we're going back to the paper. There you can see we've got the wispy highlights. Now again, I'm doing it just pinching the rubber together and just impressionistically, but in the same way that the hair grows, indicating those highlights. And you can see you're just getting that lovely highlight standing out. So coming up the side of his cheek, and then we've got up the side of his head, and it just gives us the idea of that wispy hair. And coming down to the finger, we've got that highlight right on the edge. And again, just because this is quite a dirty rubber, if you just dab, you can pull graphite off, but not going right back to the paper, and it gives you some more form. Now again, the highlight on this ring right on the edge, then there's 3 little highlights, and then we've got highlights on the lower ring. Now as we come down here, we've got these sharp highlights on his hair over his left shoulder, coming down the front of his chest. Now on this side I'm just dabbing because it's softer, just pulling some of the graphite off. And already you can see that that's looking like Albus Dumbledore. So now the strongest highlight is here on his cheek, and then we've got right on the edge of his nose, and then this right side of his lip, top of his moustache and his lip, highlight on the lower lip, but the strongest, the brightest is there. So this is where using a dirty putty rubber is quite good, because you're not pulling a lot of the highlights out. So here you can see all the paper, you know, you're not pulling all the graphite off the paper to make the highlights too strong. And so working around the shadow that's cast by his lenses. Then we've got coming up the side of his nose, bit in the centre of his forehead between his two eyebrows, and you've got this line at the top of his forehead that's just like a little V, well, a long spread out V, like a bird flying. Over his top eyebrow, eyelid, upper eyelid, going into the corner, again just down the nose. Just some highlights on the frames themselves. Again, coming down on the hand, just pulling off some tone. There in the knuckle on the top, second, third, little finger, fourth knuckle. Coming down on his hand, and the thumb going up behind that hair. Second finger, highlight on the top. As we come down the front, we can just make that a little bit stronger. And that's looking quite good. So there we've got now all of Dumbledore in and shaded, ready to build up more detail. Right, just sharpening the pencil. Now we're going to start doing a lot more of the detail. So if we start with Dumbledore's eyes, I'm still using the 2B pencil. And I'm just increasing the darkness on that upper eyelid of his left eye. And then bring the curve around underneath, right into the corner for where his tear duct is, not too hard. And we can just indicate the tear duct. Now, the edge of the iris is quite dark, and that comes down to the lower eyelid. Now, we do the right hand side, as on the paper as we look at the left hand side of his iris. And we want it really dark, so we're just increasing that corner shadow right down that corner, and then lightly shading in next to his eye, and then a little bit of shadow underneath that top corner, leaving this side a little bit clearer. I'm just putting a little bit of pencil on just to increase it. Now we've got this highlight here, so I'm drawing round it just a little bit darker with the point of the pencil. Now just pull off highlight with the putty rubber just to make it stand out, and again just sharpening that up. Now I'm going to come in with the sharp point of a 4B pencil just because it's darker, and I'm doing the pupil and then that shadow right underneath the upper eyelid. Just because it's softer, the B stands for black, and 4B means it's softer, you can get a darker line easier. Now I'm going right down to that corner And there you can see already Dumbledore's eye starting to look out at us. Now, he's got quite nice light bluey grey eyes, so I'm just filling in a little bit of his iris just to make that stand out that little bit. Now, if we come over back to the 2B pencil on this side, and we do the same, and we follow that curve right the way to the side of his eye, coming over, and then we've got this shadow in the corner, so we can just build that softly up. And I'm softening the edge as it comes over. Now there's a lot more light around here because obviously we've got the shadow down the left hand side of his face. But the shade is really in that corner. So I'm just darkening that down before we follow the curve back around. Now the edge of his iris is darker, bringing that right down to the bottom eyelid. Now coming back in with the 4B, again leave this little highlight, just carefully go around it. So I'm putting his little pupil in, and bringing that shadow over in the upper eyelid, just making it that little bit darker. Now back to the 2B pencil, darkening the side of his eye ball, just making that sit in nicely. Now what we need to do is just start building up the shadow. So you can see we've got this line underneath his eyebrow, above his left eye, and then we want to come down the side of his nose, up to the side, and again I'm just building it up. I'm not going for too dark a tone straight away. Just be careful around the picture frame, the glasses lens frame. And we can just bring that down underneath. You've got the plastic nose holder bridge thing on the glasses. And then we want to follow this curve down of the shadow just on his nose. And then again, right underneath the nose to the edge of the nostril where it joins the cheek. And here on this, you can see we've got a much darker shadow. So I'm just following that curve where you can see all of that shadow, just making that a bit darker than here. And then you've got a darker shadow line just inside the shading. So I'm just increasing that little bit. And again, inside the glasses, you've got a shadow coming down. It's going to be darker still, but I'm just indicating it a little bit more. And that's off the top of the lens frames. Now, got the shape of his nose, bringing the shadow off to the side. And I'm just going backwards and forwards very quickly. Now this, I've not twisted the pencil so as it's flattening and getting soft. And that works for this shadow especially, coming off of the glasses and across his cheek. It just allows you to have nice, soft pencil lines. Bringing that over. And we've got that deeper shadow coming down there. You can see how that's right underneath his eye, how it comes down. So we just increase that gently. Then you've got the shadow underneath his eye at the top. And then the shadow coming off the glasses to the side, and then up the side of his cheek. And there already you can see the shape and form of his cheek being created by the shadow of Dumbledore's glasses, his little half moon glasses. So now we've got the shadow coming right down the left hand side of his cheek. We're going to increase that. Right the way up the side of his head. And even though I'm going quick, I'm being careful not to go over the line of the arm of his glasses. And that's just experience. Just practice shading on a piece of paper. Now we've got the side of his eye socket going right the way up into his eyebrow and curving down. Then we've got the top of his head, his forehead, bringing that tone over. Just lightening off as we come further over, but we want more of that tone. And as I say in every video, it's easier to add tone than take it away. So you just build it up slowly. Now, coming down, we've got this crease in the centre of his nose and his eyebrows. And coming over this side, we're just building up and adding tone as we go around. So now coming down the left hand side of his nose, we've got that darker shadow caused by the central join of the glasses coming across his nose. And going off to the side, and you can see how it comes down over his cheek. And again, just using the flat of the pencil. I still haven't turned the pencil to get a sharp edge, because we just want that nice, soft, flat effect. And it allows us to do this shadow of the glasses coming over his right cheek. Then we've got the shadow that comes down and joins on the side of his right nostril. And then that comes out. And then you go down the side of the arm, down the side of his face. Now, coming back over, we'll finish this nose, so we'll come down, build the tone up on the left-hand side of the front of his nose. And that curves around that little bit. And then we've got down the edge, and just inside the right nostril. Just a bit of shadow on the side of the nose, where that comes down, just building that tone up a little bit. Just filling the nose in. Trying to just leave the highlight right on the tip of his nose. Now you can see we're just getting more and more form on Dumbledore's face. So again, now down on his left cheek, increasing that shadow. And we've got that highlight inside that lens that's glowing. Now we just need to come up over his eye, as we did across the forehead. We've got to do the same kind of thing coming across his eye. But with the flat, fortunately, we've got all these creases inside, so we can indicate those crease lines very nicely and gently. Again, the same coming underneath his eye. And going up to the corner. And we need to, again, we'll darken these down even more. But you just build the tone up kind of all around, carefully and quickly. So here now we've got the creases in his face coming up his cheek. And then the dark really coming up the side of his face. Just indicating that a little bit more. And you've got a little reflected highlight inside there, so you can leave that just showing that little bit more. You don't fill all of it in, so you just kind of come up, you've got this band here of slighter dark, and I will come back in probably with the 4B pencil to make that even darker. Now we come over on this side and we just do the same but lighter, coming over the top of his eye, shape of his eyelid, curve that over the top gently, and you got underneath the eyebrow, up the side of his head. Now the corner of his eye next to his nose above the top of his cheek, and then you've got those lines coming down and they create the shadows. So if you draw the lines on using the flat of the pencil, just makes it far easier using that flat, and you've got the texture of his skin already coming down, leaving some of the paper exposed. So now we've got his cheek coming off up the side, the shadow coming off his nose, down the bottom of his cheek to the top of his moustache. And there already we've got Dumbledore looking rather regal. And you're seeing the form as you're building the tonal values up appear more and more. So now we're on his top lip, and you can see we've got that shadow going up underneath his moustache. And it's much darker in that centre. And then go down to the corner, the edge of his mouth. Bottom part of his lip, just gently indicate. And then, again, using the flat of the pencil, you're drawing the lines of the lip on, following the form of the lip itself. But then in this corner, we've got this shadow, where the lip comes up over the top, a little bit darker. But the shadow right in the corner. And then you've got this kind of lighter bit on this right hand side of his upper lip. And the shadow underneath the bottom of his lip, coming down to the beard. And there, that's that darker tone on that side, joining in. And we just want to, here we've got, you can see as it comes down, right from the centre of the eye, we've got the crease from the corner of his mouth, this slightly darker shadow. So I'm just indicating that in, and then a little bit underneath his lower lip. And there, Dumbledore's face is really starting to come together for us. Now, we need to work on his eyebrows. So I'm now using the tip, sharpened tip of this 2B pencil. And I'm drawing in the direction of his eyebrows. These long eyebrow hairs growing up. And they're all going kind of diagonally in that direction. And that's how you draw them. And because we've got the paper showing through, you are drawing essentially the kind of shadows that the hairs are growing, and that's what your mind actually sees. So there you can see now we've got those lines going up, and the paper that's left is what is creating the lines of the eyebrows for us. Now, what we will do is come back in with a putty rubber and just add some highlighted lines as well. But here we've got a little bit of shadow that comes out, and we want to darken that bit coming down to the nose. And now I'm lightly, again, but going in the same direction, just adding on some lines just to darken the tone down. Again, just taking some lines right the way up to the, because his eyebrow nearly gets to the corner of his hair and his hat where that comes down. And just indicating some of the hair there. But if you squint, you kind of see that this totally melds into the shadow a lot. And it's that shadow that will give the form and strength to the side of his face. Now, we're going to do the same on this side. We've got this crease coming into his eyebrow. Now, softly indicating going this way this time. Those shadow bits at the bottom, and you've got the hair of his long eyebrows going off. And that's those quickly in, giving us Dumbledore's eyebrow a little bit more solidity. Now, right up here, we've got this crease in his forehead, so I'm increasing the line on that, and then the one right at the top. And there, that's really literally starting to stare out of the page at us, which is really lovely. That's what we're after. Now, again, we do the same for his moustache. So underneath the nostril down here, we've got those little darker bits right at the top. So I'm just indicating, twisting the pencil, getting a sharper point, those very dark parts. And then you just want to kind of lighten off. And we're indicating the whiskers coming down to where the side of his beard is, joining his cheek. Again, I'm just drawing lines. I'm doing this very, very quickly. If you want to do this hyper real, you've got to really focus on the area and be very, very careful. And use different grades of pencil, things like a 2H and HB and just different grades. But I'm just showing you a quick way to get your drawing skills up. So that there is the moustache. Then it comes down on his left hand side, comes down to his beard, and here we can see we've got these lines. So again, I'm just twisting the pencil, just trying to keep a sharp point. We've got an upturned U, you know, just got this curve going up, and that then comes down to his beard, and it starts to go down to the hand and go diagonally down. And here you can see we've got this darker line coming down, following the line from his cheek, coming down to his finger. And then we've got this highlighted part there. So we can just indicate more hairs in that darker part. And again, you can see straight away that's giving solidity to his beard, making his beard more full and solid. Again, just indicating some lines quickly. And because his beard's all interwoven, you don't have to do a line going all the way up. You can just indicate, and as they cross over, that gives it that lovely, fairly straight but straggly kind of whiskery texture that you want in a beard. Now, I'm starting right next to the finger, just going up so that I haven't got a gap. Because if you come down and just leave a gap, it's going to look a little bit strange. So again, just fill that in carefully and gently with your pencil right next to the finger and the hand. And that gives us his beard looking more full next to his hand completely. So now from the corner of his mouth, just bringing that down. And then just indicating the whiskers, and you can see, like, coming down here from the mouth, we've got a bit of a darker shadow, and so we can just indicate that again, just very quickly turning the pencil. And then the same coming across, this will be like underneath his chin, so you've got the chin, the bottom of his chin down here, so underneath here you've got a little bit darker, so you just put some more lines on. And that helps to give that shape and form. And again, on the chin itself, you've got the curve of the chin and then some darker area. Again, I'm just doing this really quickly and just having fun. So now, very lightly, we're going to bring in the top whiskers, curving over his top lip on the left-hand side of his moustache, coming down. And that's looking pretty good, and we've got to work all the way up on the side and just keep adding detail. Just sharpen the pencil again. Oh, excuse me, coughing away merrily. And we're going to come up now and we're going to put in the whiskers on the side of his cheek. Again, I'm using it just lightly, putting the whiskers on. Just because they're thinner, they're going to be softer here. But we need to just indicate all of the shape of his hair. So I'm following those shapes down. But already I'm not twisting the top of the pencil, but I just wanted it that little bit thinner because we'd done all this work and it was getting quite thick. And so now you can see here coming across, we've got a bit more shade. And the shape of his hair as it comes down. You can see those C shapes as it comes, you know, just like we get S shapes. So here you can see we've got a nice S shape. You can just wiggle your pencil around, technical term, and just have fun and build it up. Now again, here we've got his beard coming down, and it's just curves around and comes across his hand. But out the back here, it's out of focus just slightly, and it's slightly fuzzy. So you haven't got to be overly careful. And because we're going to soften it all off. So I'm just indicating the hair going up off at the back. And already anyway, you can see it's fairly soft because we're using the flattened part of the pencil still. And we're just going for a kind of mid-tone now all over before we put the darker shadows on. Just bringing the hair down. Now, here we've got his beard on the right hand side. A little bit of dark up there, and then it comes down and comes under his second finger. And you can see how it gets brought under the third finger and just gets darker as we come down. So I'm using the sharp part of the pencil, but being very careful. I'm resting my hand, my left hand, on top of my right hand, so I'm not putting my hand on the actual paper where all the pencil is. And again, just drawing these darker lines of the beard coming down. Now here it's just going to be jet black. And again, we've got the shadow coming down underneath this bottom part. But you can see now, so the line, imagine the line comes through his finger and then curves and comes down. You can see how that's moving, and that's how you need to direct the lines of the beard in between the fingers, as if they're literally joined with the ones above and the ones below, and then they're going to come down and join the beard at the bottom here. And that's literally how simple it is to draw hair and beards. You follow the flow. So I've just drawn those lines all uniform, but now I'm going over and just crisscrossing a couple. And that just makes it look a little bit more real. Again, as we come up to the top of the finger, you see the direction coming down, and you just keep indicating those lines, just drawing them in. I'm getting a little bit more gentle because even though it's going to be darker here, I don't want it as dark as down the bottom in between the two fingers. And we'll add the much darker tones on a little bit later. So again, just drawing the top of that finger. Now, right down to the chain and pendant. It's around the bottom part of his beard. So they've got a shadow underneath, kind of on the top, and that's what's pulling his beard together. So from underneath the hand, I'm just twisting the pencil so as it's sharper. We've got this darker shadow that comes down, so I'm just putting a dark line, a little bit longer than it needs to be for the shadow, but we'll fuzz the shadow over the top of it. And then back to quick lines, and just drawing them in as they fold towards the chain that's holding Dumbledore's beard. And so that comes down into that darker area, and then it splays out. You can see how it just comes out and just fans out as it comes underneath and out of the chain. And again, I'm not doing the lines all just, if you just did them coming out perpendicular from the chain, it just wouldn't look natural. So you do some straight, but you just kind of wiggle the lines, crisscross them over, and that makes them far more natural. So again, we've got the beard coming all the way down off the bottom of the page. And it will go a little bit darker in a bit. But already you can see we've got Dumbledore looking far more real. So now back to the side of the pencil. And we're detailing in some of the shadow on the finger. Starting with the first finger, coming down to where it joins the hand. That's much darker, but I'm using the side of the pencil, so I've got this soft edge. There you've got the creases going up into his knuckle. This dark line from the hand by the thumb. Shadow going over. Again, I'm just using the side of the pencil very carefully, just adding a little bit more. Here we've got this vein, so we can be a little bit more solid and sharp, but softening it off as it comes onto the skin, and then darkening the skin around it. Here we've got a tendon, it's coming up to the knuckle, and then filling in the shade between the two. And here we've got a darker shade in between the second and third finger knuckles. The same for the third and little finger. Curve that around. Coming over. Now he's got obviously old man hands. And they're wrinkly and leather and worn. And again, you can spend a long amount of time. See here we've got a vein around his finger. So I'm just indicating that quickly. But just this hand alone, if you wanted to do this area of a hand alone, hyper realistic, you're talking a day, maybe 2 days for the hand and the fingers. But it's just down to time. So here we're building the shadow down underneath the hand, leaving that reflected highlight a little bit lighter towards the edge. And already you can see his hand is starting to look more three-dimensional. So now, building the tone up across the top of his hand. And you can see kind of his knuckles have got the highlight. And then there's a bit of a darker tone behind it. But I'm just gently, again, resting my left hand on top of my right, pivoting from my shoulder, but using my hand to kind of bounce off. So I'm not using the wrist, I'm literally using my hand, my entire arm to make my hand move and pivot. And you can tell, if you're using your wrist, you're doing that, your elbow isn't moving. If your elbow's moving, you're working from your shoulder, and it's far easier. You know, I'm barely gripping the pencil and just allowing it to move backwards and forwards. Again, coming down the finger, got a darker shadow going to that fingernail. The creases in the skin around the joint. And then it's actually darker where it goes towards his beard. And that's just because it's kind of like a cylinder. So you've got a darker edge, and the light here isn't as direct as it is up there. So you've got the darker tone around by the beard, and obviously what's higher is lighter. We can just increase that darkness down there. Now already you see his finger is and his hand is starting to become more part of the picture. Dark around that knuckle, the joint in his finger, underneath the ring. Again, just carefully and quickly. Here we've got a vein again, so I'm drawing that vein down his hand, another one between the second and third knuckles, and then you've got the shadow off that knuckle and the little finger right at the bottom. Now the kind of leathery skin, you can just indicate some lines on like this. I'm using the big flat of the pencil. And it just makes the skin look that little bit leathery. Just because the skin's stretched out, you know, I'm looking at my own hands and I'm seeing the skin stretched as it creases and comes around. And so those lines are real. So you can just indicate them using the soft side of the pencil and getting that nice tone, but looking like aged skin. So again, here we've got this tendon, we just need to increase that. And there's, like I say, there's little veins going across his knuckles, just showing through where his skin's getting thinner. So again, now softer tone either side of his finger with a highlight going up the centre. Come to the joint, just got the creases, so I'm indicating those quickly. Same at the joint at the front of the finger. Then building the tone up. We need to do the same in the fingernail, just increase that tone that little bit. And so there we have a lot of the hand down. So here, we need to darken that down a little bit. We've got right the way across there. That needs to go darker. You can see how those knuckles now are just standing out because you've got the darker parts in between the fingers. And then you've got those lights on the top making the knuckle actually hold out. And when we put the dark all down here and down this side, it'll really make it stand out. Now, we've got this stitching around the hem. And again, I'm going to use the flat of the pencil. And you're creating it in reverse. So I'm just drawing kind of little rectangle shapes as it comes around the edge, just using the flat of the pencil, leaving the line, the white, well, the toned paper exposed. Now we bring this down, all down this side, and it kind of gets closer to the edge, so we're just indicating kind of little dots. Now just wiggles as it comes down, and then up here in between the two you draw another little black dot and you've got that pattern. And that's how simple it is to create, you know, rather than trying to draw the outline of the pattern. Again, I'm doing this quickly and impressionistically. So you can see now around there, we've got the pattern just looking nice on the edge of his cuff. And then we come down the hem, just indicating the larger squares all the way down, and then we can just add some lines around it, just helps. And like right down the edge, just putting that wiggly line around the edge of it. And all around the inside of the hem. And that's going to be dark. So now we're going to do, using the flat of the pencil, we're going to do the same with his hair. On this side, indicating some more bits of the shadow areas. And just leaving the paper blank where we've got that fantastic highlight down the side. So here, right up to the where it goes under the brim of his hat, and we've got that like wave coming out of the hair. And then this tone coming down underneath the finger. Again, I'm just using the soft side, but doing exactly as we did on the beard, but on a larger scale, because it's just much softer. Just filling in larger areas, and if you squint, you can kind of see where you need to put some tone, and you can soften that down. And then we've got this hair here, this curve of hair, just pressing on darker, using the tip a little bit more. And that's curving down, coming all the way. We've got indication where those little jewels are on his jacket, his cloak. Now again, right in the highlighted bit, I'm drawing some nice lines going across of the hair, doing the crossing thing that we do. And then when we go over with an eraser in a moment, it will help make those stand out. And it'll just look like real hair. So I'm going to come in with the putty rubber. This is the used one that's obviously darker. Keep pinching it. And that'll pull up some of the little highlights that we want in this area of his hair and his beard. We can go up the side of his head right to that bit where it goes under his hat. And there you can see that really bright highlight. Now again, very fine tip, and it just allows you to put some nice little wispy hairlines in. So now again, up on his eyebrow, I'm being very gentle and careful. And doing the same thing, just dabbing gently where those highlighted eyebrows are, going in the same direction. And it just gives you that little bit of reality. Now again, same over his moustache. Coming down very quickly, right on the top of his lip. I just have to keep pulling it into a sharper point. Just soften that down. Just rubbed it with my finger a little bit. And again, doing this is exactly the same that you do with a pencil. You're using it as a drawing tool. So I'm just crisscrossing, and it gives more realness to the hair, because you're then breaking up some of the lines that you've drawn down. If you criss out over it a little bit, it just looks a little bit more real, because you've got hairs crossing over one another. Again, right up onto the underneath of his chin, then down the side of his cheek. Again, you can really see the lines at the bottom here now. Just allows it to draw off the, it allows the light to make the image look as if it's coming off the page. So here we've got these softer lights at the edge, just dabbing, and then coming in with a sharpened point. And then you've got that lovely one coming out from underneath the hat, right next to his glasses. And then right down the side, we've just got these, so I'm really pulling it into a point again, just pinching it. And you can draw those down. And even though they're now much lighter, so you want this highlight to stay the same, but these need to be softer, you just come in with a piece of kitchen roll. Now I'm going to find a clean bit, not a bit that's already been used. And if you soften that down, you've still got the lines that you've removed using the putty rubber, but they're now back in the picture as opposed to as highlighted as these. And that just helps. So you can see now that's got a lot of reality, whereas this is much brighter still. Now we're going to come in quickly I'm just pulling out the highlight on the end of his nose and then going up the side. I want that highlight underneath the shadow, and right in that corner, across the bridge of his nose, these creases up at the top. Just dabbing now on the centre of his forehead. And that already looks so lovely. Highlight right next to his eye. Now again, I'm pinching it to a sharp point, and you get the highlights of those creases in his skin around his eye. Right in the corner, over the upper eyelid, underneath the eyebrow, on the top above the eyebrow. Now again, on his left eye, we're doing the same, really pinching it and using the putty rubber to create the texture of the creases in his aged skin. Same underneath his eye. And then coming down the side of his face. Got that highlight underneath the shadow of his lens frame. And then we just want some little lines into his face. Highlight on his cheek. Little reflected highlight underneath the nose, right on the edge, and we're going to darken that down in a minute. Then we've got this highlight on the top of his lip and the bottom lip, and the edge of his nose and that cheek, the highlight there on the side. Again, underneath the frame as it comes down. Again, I'm really pulling it to a pinch, very lightly scoring the cheek for those creases. Now, the same on the hand, but I'm just dabbing gently. I'm not pressing on as hard as I did on the face. But we still want, so that by the vein and the tendon and the top of that vein down there, the creases around the joint, not the top of the hand, skin on the top of the knuckles. I'm just being very, very careful. But that's looking really good. Now, I need the 4B pencil very quickly because I want to put in the dark of his left nostril. That little bit. And then the dark in his mouth, and we've obviously got to detail that up now, but that's looking really good. So now we're going to bring in a lot more shadow, but we're going to do the hat. Now, if you want to do this as detailed as you possibly can, you've got to spend a long time on it, but I'm going to go for a very impressionistic way of doing this drawing. Now I'm using the 4B pencil just because it's darker. So you can see we've got these two little points and then you've got a circle. Two little points and then a circle. Now here, down on this end, we've got this very, very strong highlight coming into this dark shadow. So we've got that coming down to the kind of brim, and we've got a strong highlight here, and 2 points of a strong highlight going up there. So I'm drawing where I need the darker shadow. Now again, you can take as long as you want on this, but I am going for speed. You've got the brim of the hat that comes all the way over. But here we've got a really nice... So I'm even resting my right hand on the paper and my left hand on top so as I can do the pivot thing from my shoulder, but using my right hand as a balance in it to help with the guide. So this is a 4B pencil and I've got to press on fairly hard to get this level of dark. And we've got the shadow that kind of comes over towards the centre part. And then you've got these kind of zigzags. And then right in the centre, so here you've got, above these two, you've got a kind of little diamond and then another one above it. Now, there's a kind of vertical line in the patterning, so I'm just running some vertical lines up. That's how quick and easy it can be in this kind of velvet hat You can see already that that's just darkened down incredibly. So now we need this shadow on the top of his hat to the highlight. And then this curves right over all the way down. Now we've got this bit that comes around, and again I'm just indicating some darker creases in, just going backwards and forwards, just looking. You can see like the shapes, but just like the hair, you follow the shape and form of the creases. But because I'm changing the pressure, you get a very dark line, but then you get that softer edge around the outside. And then I'm just filling in the softness. Now again on this side, it's kind of not as dark as there, but we've got a very dark area as it comes down the right hand side of his head, and then it goes dark right in the corner. I'm just filling in quickly this kind of darker tone. So again, you've got this kind of zigzag here of shape. So you're following the geometric form but wiggling the pencil about, and you get the softness of the fabric. So you can see already how that's looking soft and fabricy as opposed to hard and metallic-y or wood. And that's what you do. You use the softness of the pencil to create the image that you want. To make the fabric look soft and real, but also have your patterning in it. So again, now I'm going up and down just like the lines that are in the fabric a little bit. So that I need to darken down. That comes over. Now again, because the hat is on the top of his head, you can go as detailed as you want. You can go back in with a putty rubber and keep increasing the detail if you want. But as I say, I'm going for an impressionistic representation. So for a quick sketch, you are trying to convince people that they are seeing something in front of them. So that's most of the tone down to the braiding and the patterns on his actual hat. Now we've got these beads that come around, so I'm just going round underneath the beads using the flatter edge of the pencil, just creating little circle shapes underneath, going right the way across. Now here we've got some stronger highlights, so I'm just indicating a darker shadow where the beads might be, then going over the top and just leaving some bits showing. And that's how you create that patterning. So rather than fully flattening in, you're putting a lot of dark tone down, but in little bits. As we come across to the centre, again I'm just dabbing and indicating pencil lines where the beads may well be. So now we've got to come in and get the very bottom of the hat. So I'm following the line that I did and softening that line out right the way across where it dips to his eyebrow, then curves across. And again, underneath the kind of beads, I'm just doing lots of little lines up and down, zigzagging. And then increase the tone, just do a little bit of cross hatching. And there where that highlight is. So we've got that sharp highlight. So now I'm coming in with the cleaner putty rubber. Just pulling some bits off. That makes that just stand out that little bit. Again, I'm darkening the edge of the hat. We need to just increase the dark around that highlight. And then for all of this patterning, this is just what you need to do. You just need to increase the dark. So I'm now going to bring the shadow underneath the beads all the way across, right down to that edge, and then literally just wiggling some dark shapes and lines, just general squiggling basically, to create the effect of the kind of velvet edge of his hat, the brim of his hat above his forehead. So now I've put the darker lines in, I'm just using the flat of the pencil and going over it and filling all that tone in. So now the same thing across the top. We've got the darker around like the two circles and then the 2 points, and you just indicate them, and then underneath the points going down to the beads. Again, we can just darken the edge of some of the beads, put the tops in coming down on this side. Now we've got some highlights down here, so I'm just circling those up, and then just try and leave some of the highlights showing. Again, the pattern across the top of the braid of his hat, just put some darker lines across the top, and then darker lines underneath where it comes down to the beads. And you can see it's just kind of brighter across the top. So now, using the side of the pencil, just indicating some patterning inside all of that detail on the banding. And again, it's just squiggling. I am literally just squiggling. Now, nice dark line. We're onto the pendant on the back of his hat. Nice dark line in the centre, and that's the shadow. And then curve it off to the edge, bring it around. We want to leave this highlight showing. So I'm just filling in the tone to the left of it towards the centre part of the hat. Now just squiggling in the detail on the hat as well. And you can see that that hat now looks really patterned and detailed, which is what you want, but it's just very quickly indicated in. The edge of that highlight. So now I'm going to come in with the clean putty rubber and just pull out that highlighted bit. And then on a couple of points on the beads area, just pull off the highlights a little bit as well. Again, the same on that side. And then you can come back in and just indicate some round parts of the beads again. The darker shadow right underneath. Just make that a little bit more accentuated. The same coming all the way across. And then we need darker in the middle underneath. And just keep looking at your reference and you go, yeah, I just need a bit more dark there. I need a couple of squiggles there. And that's how you build that up. Dark shadow of the hat inside, coming right the way down to the little bauble at the bottom of his hat. And that very quickly is Dumbledore's hat in, I don't know, 12 minutes, just a very, very short amount of time. So again, on the highlighted bit up here, we've got some shadow inside, so you can just indicate some with the soft side of the 4B pencil. Now, just sharpen it so I've got a big flat edge. And I'm very gently rubbing some pencil down on the page. Now, I'm not going to go full dark, but this will help. So already it's got, like when I started it was a bit scratchy because it wasn't flat, but already that's flattening off lovely. Just by whacking some darker tone around the outside, you're going to make Dumbledore show up so much better. Now, done that, doesn't matter, you've got a dirty part of the kitchen roll, and I'm just circling it now, just totally. But being careful not to obliterate the highlight. So I'm using the edge of my thumb right next to that highlight so that I don't obliterate it. And I'm actually pushing it over the hat here. I'm pushing it right over the hat. Now again, being careful not to obliterate the highlight. I've just gone over a little bit of the bell, the gem trinkety thing on the edge of his hat. Already it looks like he's coming out of some clouds and mists, and that's what you can do. You can use swirls of smudged pencil to actually accentuate your drawing. So now I'm really pushing that over the hat on the edge so the hat doesn't stand out. Just pushing that tone around. Going right over the top and just pushing it around the side. And then you come in, I'm going to come in with the very clean putty rubber first. And there you can see that ball is really sticking out. I mean, that's looking fantastic, but I'm going to use the dirty putty rubber now. And we're just gently crisping up along the top of the hat. And then again down the side here where we've got that highlight on the edge. And now here into where we've got all of that tone, you can put some really thin, long, wispy highlighted hairs that are just cascading around off his face. Doesn't that look absolutely lovely? And the same here on this edge. And just like we did, like I say, we want these to be brighter, so we'll leave them as they are. But on this side, we'll take it off first. And then you just come back in with your kitchen roll and smudge that over. Oh, that's... I mean, you could leave that as it is. You really could. But I'm going to do some more. But that is just lovely. I hope you're enjoying this. I am having an absolute blast. And we'll just carry on and do more detail in a moment. So now we're going to come in and we're going to fill in a lot of this shadow area very quickly. But we've got to be careful around this fingernail on his hand, and then where it comes underneath down here. Now, I'm using the 4B pencil again, and really I'm going to go for a very, like we're using the smudging on the edge, I'm going to go for a very loose area down here. So we've got the edges of the fabric on his cloak coming into this dark underneath this finger and around the second finger. There we've got that dark that then goes up the side of his beard. And I'm just softening the edge off that a little bit. And then we've obviously got the dark down his finger, but we'll detail that in a minute. I just want to get a lot of this shape in. So in between the second and third finger, we've got a darker shadow that comes all the way down. So I'm just carefully going over the tone, but you can see already that that is separating off that finger. Now between the third and fourth finger and around the rings, that's much darker. Again, I'm just using the flat side of the pencil. And the finger just disappears into the dark. Again, the same around the little finger. We come around the edge of the ring, down the bottom, and down the side of his beard, as it comes down and goes into that little chain. And so we can keep building up softly this side, the edge next to the beard, the darkness of that shadow. And we can just fill in this area. Now we've got this little kind of highlighted bit. We've got one up here. So I'm just drawing a little circle. You see there, that's just coming down from that finger. And you can leave a little bit showing. Now again, here we've got another bit. Got the circle coming round. And that kind of little highlighted bit. It's inside the dark, with a little jewel. That looks like a press stud, you know, just looking at the image. But we can just leave that little bit of light showing. Now again, there's pattern within the shadow, but just by doing the lines up and down like this, you're kind of indicating where the patterning is. Now I'm doing it a little bit darker around where the end of his little finger would be, whereas the dark going right up to the ring. Again, you just indicate the darker shadow around it and lighter shadow where the finger would be. Just a little bit, just change the pressure that little bit. It increases the intensity and it just allows you to think, yeah, that's where the finger is. Again, the same as it goes into the shadow with the third finger. Now, we're going to do the same, but very quickly, coming down from underneath the hair. There's a long line, so there's obviously a bit of cloak that covers. We've got that long length of shadow and then a bit more shadow there. Now, here we've got some edge with a little bit of patterning on. And so, on that lighter bit, I'm just drawing some little diagonal lines going up. And increasing the shadow around where that hair just splits off, just so as it looks like the hair's coming down. And again, the same now, we can see here, we've got to increase the shadow coming up underneath this highlighted part of his hair. So I'm just going for general tone. Again, the same on the edge. Just filling in an area, but just being careful and keeping the edges soft. But there already you can see we've got the impression of his cloak and robes. So now I'm just drawing just some little squiggles, lines and squiggles. And that indicates the pattern that's on his cloak underneath. So now we've just done all of that. I'm just going to soften that tone, come back in with the pencil, because as you rub on that, it actually takes graphite off. And I obviously want the darker part being down, but it just softens the pencil and gives us what we're looking for. But it's up here now, so back in with the kitchen roll, and we want this darker tone graduating in to his hair as it cascades down. And we've got some much darker little passages, and again, using the side of the pencil, you can get these kind of sharper triangular shapes, and that just gives us the right kind of indication that we need. And then you come back in with the putty rubber. I'm going to use the dirty one for this. And you draw, use it, just pinch it again, those lovely wispy bits, but because we've dragged the pencil over the highlighted exposed bits, you can see where it's lighter, but you just indicate the hair in there and you can see it's just already lifting off. You've got that bright highlight. And the indication of just light, wispy hair coming down over his cloak and robes. Now again, the more shadowed ones, you can just pull some off and then just wipe it with your finger, or a kitchen towel if you don't want to get your finger dirty. You can just use the kitchen towel and just keep smudging it. But there we've got that lovely highlight on his hair, just cascading down over his robes. Again, you can do as much or as little of this as you want. But I'm just doing it as a very impressionistic. You know, if you wanted to really indicate this, you could use white paint or a chalk pencil, pastel pencil, or a paint pen. I think you can get like white paint pens. So you can indicate the hair in lots of different ways, but I'm using this rubber as a quick, efficient drawing tool. So now, sharpening the 4B pencil, and we're going to do the same now on this side. And I mean, really, hang on, I'm just going to, the end's just snapped off. I'm going to fill that in pretty much right to the bottom, just so as it looks uniform. I know I've got the tape right in the corner to stop my page from wobbling about. So now we want to bring about the tone and the values on this side, so that it's then pretty much fully three-dimensional, and then we can just add and put in the finishing details, the extra shadows. So here we've got like hair coming down. There's a little circle of light there, which is a jewel. So just put a little kind of circle in, just dabbing it with the putty rubber. Come back in. Now again, I'm using the side of the pencil, but just kind of mottling, just going up and down with broader strokes. Because this material, it's not as dark there on this side. And we just want to bring this up so you can see where the top of the finger is. This is where this triangle of dark comes up to in his hair. And I'm just following the curves of the hair as best I can to bring down the tone onto his robes. So now, here we've got this lovely dark patch. Again, I'm just using the side of the pencil, filling it in. And then we've got this lovely kind of shiny silk material. So now I'm just filling the tone. I'm going just up and down. And again, the same on the right hand side, up to his shoulder. And just filling these large areas in with as flat a part of the pencil as I can. And then here we can see it goes a bit darker as it comes in. But you've got these kind of crinkle lines, so you can kind of go backwards and forwards, fill inside that circle. But you can see already, just by going backwards and forwards, you're getting texture and tone and value very simply. And I'm just, again, on this hand, the cover that goes over his hand from the end of his sleeve, we've got different patterns of tone. So I'm just going backwards and forwards, sideways, up and down, diagonally. And that gives that kind of crinkly effect of that fabric. Carefully fill up to the edge where the hem is, and then we can fill that in all the way down. Now we just look a little bit more careful and look where the crinkles are, and we can indicate those. And that darker shadow now coming up underneath his beard, his thumb, underneath the hair. And then we've got this little bit of pattern. So I'm using a bit of the raised pencil. There you've got the circle, second circle. Now I'm just using the tip of the pencil there. We want to darken that down the side of the pencil a little bit. Then we've got this shadow, so we need to really crisp up the edge, and then there's a little kind of line on the hem. And again, I'm just wiggling just patterns and shapes. There, we just need to increase that dark down a bit more. Again, I'm just keep looking at the reference. And just darkening down what I need to. So here by the side of his thumb, just carefully bringing that darker tone down. Now where it joins the hair, just twisting, doing what we did before, and increasing that dark with the tip of the pencil. And it just helps to graduate the tone into the beard. And then you get that nicer soft edge. So now I'm going to come in gently with the kitchen roll and just smooth out a lot of that tone. I'm just dabbing, and because I'm not doing a full general stroke, you're actually smoothing it around itself, and that then gives you all the different patchy tones, so you can see different shades there. Then you just simply come back in with the putty rubber, and you can see here we've got a kind of highlight going up with some diagonals on. That comes down, and then where this stitching is, nice thin line, and then the circles just highlight, so you just pinch the putty rubber, highlight the bits that you need to, and then again the pattern on his cloak, you're just using the shapes, and I'm just twisting it and just dotting. Again, the same on end of the cuff that comes over his hand. Just keep squodging, not too fine a point. And you can see you're getting that kind of highlighted fabric, that shine and shimmer. Again, just soften over the top gently. I'm not pressing on too hard, and that works to help to bring that detail in. So now just coming in to sharpen up the details where we need them. So the dark needs to go a bit darker there. Got that shade coming down his right shoulder from the top. Again, I'm just pivoting from my shoulder, just allowing the pencil to do the work. And we got hair coming down, so I'm just indicating with the pencil, just some cascading hair as that covers and comes down, and then we come back in with the putty rubber and it'll help make that look a lot more real. So now down on the hand we've got these shadows, and again I'm just using the flat of the pencil to create the lines like we did with the old skin. you just let the pencil, the shape of it, do the work for you. And then where it comes here, we've got this much darker shadow right on the cuff as it curves over. Again, just putting cross-hatching lines on. Now we've got kind of dotted bit of stitching. So I'm just putting some dots on. Then we need the edge of this hem, just defining a little bit more. And then we've got this shadow right over the hand. And that goes very dark all the way down. And then you soften it out a little bit. And you've got this kind of triangle of shadow there. Just much darker. And then underneath the hand, going up into that shadow, you want that nice dark line right next to the hand. Soften it where it joins the skin. And then just soften it out as it covers the beard. And then following the lines of the beard down, we've got some darker shade going in, but all the lines you've put on before help, and just help with the tone. So you're increasing the darkness as you're coming down, but the lines all help. So now we just need to increase the darkness of the chain itself, and then using the point, I'm just twisting the pencil, keeping the sharp a bit, just doing the crisscross stuff that we did on the beard before in the darker tone areas. And you can see now that the beard down here is much darker than up here, which is what we want. Darken that pendant down. Now, come around the fingers. I'm just going to have to bring some paper so I don't smudge it all. And we got this incredible dark between the second and third fingers. Again, darker right underneath the finger, and then just go vertically where you got it on the beard and just darken bits down. Between the first and second fingers, next to the second finger along the top, we've got a bit of dark, but then it's much darker underneath the first finger, but not like it is down here. So we're just carefully shading it, just making it a little bit darker at a time. Fill all the shadow in, following the shape of the finger. Then we want the beard and the hand. So now I'm using the side of the pencil to increase. You can see we've got the shadow down at the bottom, kind of coming down. So you come down from his cheek, putting nice flat strokes down. And this then comes up the side. We've got a bit of shadow there on the chin. So imagine the curve of his chin at the bottom where the hairs coming over the edge of his chin. But you can see that's just looking really beardy. It's the only way to describe it. I'm using the point of the pencil now. It's just beardy. It's a beard. So there you go. And it looks like a beard because it is a beard. And that's what you're drawing. So keep thinking about making these marks to recreate what you want people to believe that they are seeing. So there, I'm just darkening right next to the finger, so that finger then stands out that little bit more. Now you can see that that thumb is really bright, and so's the hand. So just cross hatching all the finger and the hand will darken everything down. So it's like you're putting a complete layer of tone down. And we just need to build up and increase the tone very carefully. So we can increase behind that vein, in between that tendon and the vein, between the vein and the edge of the hand, and coming up the edge of the finger to the creases in the joint. Then we need that darker shadow between the first and second fingers, that crease. Then we've got more shadow coming down to the knuckle joint, and going up the underneath of the finger. So you've got that kind of reflected highlight, so you just want the shadow going right up to the end. But just be very careful. Again, a little bit of tone on the fingernail, over the top. And down the side of the finger again, the top of the finger. You can see now that's really settling down. Again, just cross hatching over the finger. We need to darken the rest of it all down as well, and just fill the hand in and then do the rings. Just sharpening my 4B pencil again. Now we're coming in and we're going to be very carefully, we need to work around the second finger. So we've got the shadow right on the bottom part of the fingernail, and it just leaves a nice highlight showing. And then we've got the shadow coming up the finger to the joint. And again, I'm following the shape of the lines on the skin. We need to soften the edge as it goes into the shadow, and just build that dark up, coming over up to the top. And we've got the creases in his finger, in the joint. And then again, the joint on the third finger, and we're coming down to where the ring is. So now we've got, and I'm going to put the paper here just so as I can rest and be more accurate. Using the point, we've got the curve of the ring coming around, comes down and then goes off into the shadow, right off where the finger is. And at the back edge we've got that curve, and that's the dark, but right at the front we've got a highlight, so we need to expose that highlight first, and then you've got 3 little highlights, 1, 2, 3 on the top part of the T, or the cross on his ring. And then fill in the dark, leaving that paper exposed, and that's your highlights on the ring. Then you've got the same going off to the back, 1, 2, 3, and the shade going right to the edge. You've got a couple of darker lines going in, and then you can just soften them in between, and then it's a bit lighter going to the edge. There's a little reflected highlight at the bottom, and that's the curve of the metal. And then we need darker over the top, but not absolutely black. And I'm just using the sharp of the pencil to indicate the hairs in between again. But straight away you've got that nice darker patch and shape of that ring. Now again, the ring on the little finger, doing the very edge, crisp that up, and then crisp the highlight at the back where it comes around. And then you've got a little highlight right on the edge. And then you've got this oval of dark. So I'm doing dark around the edge, but then not as dark everywhere else. Now the patterning, we've just got some lines. So you've got a line there with a load, and that comes off in a little triangle at the bottom. I'm just putting some little lines across which will leave the highlights exposed for us. Then we've got the curve of the ring that creates the shadow on the finger, and then that goes off into the dark. A couple of lines down, and then we've got just some lines following the curve around. Some are a bit darker, but we're just going to leave some of the highlights exposed, and then just with the tip of the pencil, very gently, this is still the 4B, you can fill in some of the midtones. But you're leaving exposed some of the highlights. Now I'm going to come in with the dirty putty rubber and just pull off the highlights on each of the rings. And then feathering the dark into the shadow. Now again, we want to increase the dark coming off these fingers. Because as we've put all this dark in around, it shows up how light they are. So we're doing the shadow underneath the second finger, then between the second finger and the knuckle, just using the soft side of the 4B pencil down the side of the finger. Again, I'm just crisping the edge of the finger up where it joins the beard. And the curve of the finger, the skin coming over, coming down to the knuckles. In between the third and fourth fingers. got that vein creating that highlight and that little shape there. And the shade coming down the side of his right hand to that little finger. Again, just adding that little bit of a tone at a time. And you build it up and make it look more and more real. So here we've got this lovely shadow off that vein. Little vein going off under the skin, a tendon. Shadow between the knuckles. Excuse me, just a frog in the throat there. But already you can see that that hand is looking really, really lovely. And again, I'm just bringing a general tone over now, just to bring it down that little bit. And there, that hand's looking really, really fantastic. So again, the shadow now caused by the hand underneath, we want to soften that out over the beard. Just so that it doesn't look as stark a line. That's really, really lovely. Again, just softening a bit of tone down all the way down that finger. And all over the hand. Again, you just see we're leaving the highlights on those knuckles showing that little bit. So you can see each of the tops of the knuckles. Now, up by the top of this finger, now again we've got these highlights now down at the end of this finger and on the nail. I'm just using the putty rubber to highlight that little bit, just pull it off, and I'm using the darker, deeper one, the used putty rubber. Got a strong highlight underneath the first finger, then right on the tip of the nail, around the joint on the first finger, and down the top of the finger. Again, just gently touching the knuckles, top of the knuckles, bringing those highlights out. And smudging it with my finger straight after. There you can see that's really, really working well for us. So again, now we come back onto the hair on this side, and we did all of these lines coming down. And now we want to build the dark using the soft side of the pencil, coming up his face right the way to the top. We got this darker patch up by the eyebrow. And you can see how this comes out. So here we've got the hair, you've got like a C shape, and it's coming out into that highlight. And then it's darker here. So I'm just putting some darker little curved shapes in. And then that's going to come down, and we need to just do the same as it comes out to the edge. just indicate some darker lines. Now we come back in again with the putty rubber and do the same as we did earlier. All the way down. And you have to keep turning it over, because once the putty rubber's picked up all the pencil it can, it just won't pick up any more. Again, I'm just pulling some off, and then you just smooth it down again. That way you don't have as strong a highlight. So you can see there, that's really bright. But if we come back in with the kitchen roll, softens it down, but you can still see the hair, because you're suggesting it rather than wanting it to be as bright as on this side. And again, his hair's coming all the way down the front of his robes. And then just soften it. And that's looking absolutely lovely. I hope you're having fun with this. I'm really, really enjoying it. And that's the whole point. I just want you to have fun creating your art. There, that's looking absolutely fantastic. So again, really pulling the putty rubber to a point. And where we put all of this dark on his beard, just pinch it. And it just creates that light, wispy hair again. And it's just simple things like that that help to build it up very, very slowly. So now I'm going to come in using the tip of the 4B pencil, because we've got a nice defined line on his fingernail. The shadow around the back. And we just need a little bit of shade around the edge there. That's his fingernail looking really, really good. So now we need to come in by his nose, and we've got this much darker shadow. I'm just going to sharpen so I've got the point, but remember this is a 4B, so it's going to soften down very quickly. If you don't press on, you'll get a nice soft tone. So here we've got this shadow coming right up underneath his glasses, where the plastic support is, onto his nose. Little highlight line there. We can just deepen that a little bit on the plastic so as it's not as bright. But here we want this D-shaped shadow coming off the side of his nose. And then we've got a secondary shadow line. You can see that's kind of in the centre of his nostril. And you follow the curve, follow that D shape, and then it goes up right next to, just curves up next to that bit of plastic on the bridge of his nose. I'm just gently and quickly putting that soft line in. It's got a soft edge. I'm not pressing on so I've got a sharp point. We'll do that on the glasses in a minute. We need to bring that darker tone, but a bit lighter, coming underneath the centre of his nose. Follow that edge up the side of his nose, and then that dark going over the bridge of his nose caused by the centre part of his spectacles. Now, coming down the nose, the side of it here, just increase the tone but not as dark as these shadows. And then you've got a reflected highlight right next to the edge, so you don't want to go right to this part here. And we just need to darken underneath the nostril a little bit, but not as much. As you can see, it's darker here. Again, I'm just very carefully adding tone, little by little. And inside the glasses, we've got a darker amount of tone there. And then that crease going up to the corner of his eye. This needs to be a bit darker, but not as dark as this section down here. You can see already now Dumbledore's nose and face is looking a lot more defined because his nose has got that stronger shadow on. We're coming up under the eyebrow. Now using the side of the pencil, but again very soft, no hard defining line. And we're darkening inside the shadow that we've put down already, coming right the way over to the side of his face. Then these crease lines on his cheek, you can just darken those down a little bit, but we're just using the soft side of the pencil. Now, coming up, we've got the shadow coming over of the glasses. And that's starting to look really lovely. Now, we've got a highlight to put a shadow underneath, so I'm using the tip of the pencil. I'm going to follow the curve of the glasses underneath, putting that dark line in, and just trying to leave a little bit of a highlight all the way around. It goes dark there. Again, the underneath of the inside of the top. Got a highlight right underneath. I'm just carefully, that didn't press on too hard there, but then your dark is above. So I'm twisting so I've got a sharp part. Now coming in with the putty rubber right in the corner, just indicating that highlight. Again, as it curves down, just pulling off that highlight a little bit. The hinge, you've got a highlight right on where the frame is. Then you've got dark to the edge. And you've got a couple of little wiggly highlights on the edge, but darker at the top. And as that goes into the hair behind. But there already you see Dumbledore's glasses really starting to sit on his face better. So here now we've got the underneath. We've got a highlight a third of the way over. So I'm just putting a darker little bar in to the left and then to the right, and then we want this dark going over a little bit where it comes down and then joins the top of his glasses. And you leave those little highlights exposed. The top of the glasses is darker going over, and then again curve underneath, that's darker, and where that curves around. Again, I just pulled that line off a little bit too much, so just rub that out quickly. Then we got the corner, the hinge, and the arm going off. In fact, I'm going to sharpen the pencil so I've got a sharp point again. Again, we're now going to do the same. We're going to darken the shadow that comes down across his cheek. But gently using the tip so you can keep the edges soft and not a crisp line. And then this curves underneath, goes up to the edge of his nose. Got that little hinge joint shadow, that kind of ball. And there you've got the shadow going across Dumbledore's cheek. Now we're going to increase the shadows just down and around his face. Again, I'm just using the soft tip of the pencil, just doing some cross hatching. Here we're going to increase it now, the curve of the edge of his eye socket. Right to the corner of his eye. And you can see this comes underneath the corner of the glasses there. And that goes right up. So now I'm doing the shadow lines underneath the bottom of his eyebrow in the direction, using the point of the pencil to go in the direction of the eyebrows. Right up to the top. Then we've got this fantastic shadow down the side of his cheek. Again, using the soft side of the pencil just to increase it as much as we need. Coming up to where the hair is, underneath the frame of the arm of the glasses. Just feathering it slightly into the hairline. But then we've got these craggy lines in his face. So again, I'm just using the soft tip of the pencil to indicate those lines, following the form of the cheek coming down. And the cross hatching works for us. So here we've got all of the crease lines coming off the side of his eye, so you can just indicate them over his eyebrow, upper eyelid, coming right into the corner, and right underneath that part, and that all of a sudden is Dumbledore's face looking absolutely fantastic. Again, just a simple bit of cross hatching on the cheek there as it comes down. We now need a tone darker at the top. Just being careful not to obliterate the eyebrow. We're coming down. And then coming across the top. Again, using the flat of the pencil just means you can cover a large area. And you can see how vibrant that's become and how lovely and full and rich. So right up to the top of the hat. Again, you just increase the shadows where you need them, little by little. And when you increase the shadows here, even though you think this looks dark, it actually lightens it up because your tonal values all work together, and your darks bring the midtones and the highlights further forwards. So here we want that dark going up to the frame and then into the side of his hair. And that part of the hair needs darkening down. And that, you can see, is really elevating the front of the face off now. Just bring a bit of dark down the side of the beard. Using the tip of the pencil just to feather that in that little bit. So again, now we're getting close to the home stretch. This is now kind of final details. And so we're working around his right eye, softening the edge. You can see here we've got this shadow up in the corner. And then the creases above. So we want this line going over to the edge. And we've just got lots of creases in his skin, because Dumbledore is rather old. Then the side of the nose here needs a bit more shadow on it as it comes down on the left hand side of the nose, because the light's obviously coming from this side. So we just need a little bit more tone following that shape down. Again, the same up across the top. Building that shadow up. Again, you just do it little by little. The side of the nose there, we've just got a little bit of tone that comes down that's darker. But then between the glasses, just a little bit of tone, very lightly, that comes down. And then joins that crease of his cheek and the upper lip. So again, now coming down the cheek like we did on this side, we've got these lines in his face. You can just build them up, little cross hatching. Now again, you can use a blending stump or a cotton bud and you can really soften this down, but because Dumbledore's face is so craggy, I don't need to do that. So here, coming underneath, we've got the creases in his lines underneath his eye. Fill the tone in there, coming up the side. Then right down underneath. From that corner of his eye. We've got the kind of first bag of the lower eyelid. It's a bit darker in the corner. Then we want that tone coming off that upper part of his eye socket. Some more detail in the eyebrow, going up to that crease above on his forehead, crease right at the top. And there you can see he's really looking, magically magisterial, I suppose is the best way to describe it. And this is the point where you start thinking, well, okay, how far do I keep going? And that is totally personal choice. So again, now just down, I'm seeing it, I just want some darker shadows in the hair on the side. And there by the side of the glasses. Now I'm going to come in with the clean putty rubber. because I'm going to pull off the highlight on the end of his nose, around the glasses there, and then on his left eye we've got some stronger highlights there, and underneath that side on his cheek, and then inside that lens. You can see that's just really lifting it off the page now. And again, the upper lip, and the whiskers on the top, and then where they come down. That just gives us more of that wispy definition. The creases in the middle of his forehead, in between his two eyebrows. Again, just using the dabbing technique. You just pull that little bit off. Just curving that eye round. And you're just using this to add texture. Where you need the highlights, you can use this, and it just literally lifts off the pencil that you need on the kind of crease lines. And it's great for that on these highlighted parts. And just coming up the cheek. Underneath the nose. So now I'm going to come back in with the 2B pencil. And I'm just indicating Dumbledore's beard. Again, just spinning the pencil, keeping the sharp part, doing most of the work. But it's just working with everything that we've already put in. So here you can see, coming up from above where the thumb is, we need a darker amount of lines, and that's coming up, and you can see where it comes up to where the chin is here. So the side of his jaw and his chin, you can see through underneath, and you've got the shadow of the dark of his robes that are underneath. Again, the same here. We need to just build up some of the tone. And you just do this now until you are happy and content with the level of the drawing that you want to be at. And depending how photographic you want to go, you need to spend hours and hours. Now, just sharpening the 2B pencil a bit. I need to use the paper, so I'm going to bring the paper in. And this is now just darkening his lips. So we've got the shade underneath. We've got this like upturned, like a mountain, you know, like a top of an egg. We can see here we've got the shade. So I'm using the fine tip of the pencil to indicate that. And you can see there that nice little simple shape in the whiskers. And coming up to the corner of his mouth, we've got this shade underneath the bottom lip above that upturned bit. Coming over to the bottom lip, right at the centre of his mouth, darken that down a bit, where the upper lip goes up to underneath his whiskers. It's darker on the left hand side. Then we've got this little dark line that comes over. That reflected highlight underneath. You can see now his upper lip is starting to look much better. Then we've got this dark coming down to the corner of his mouth. That dark corner underneath the moustache to his beard. Then this edge. So again, I'm going up and down with the lines as if they were the actual creases on the lips. And off into the edge. This is how I say you actually see and notice where, because the lips weren't actually standing out, where you just need some more tone. And you got his nice grey beard and hair. And you just have to build it up little by little, carefully. So it's like there now we've got just a couple of little lines that are coming over his hat because of his very large eyebrows. And then just a couple of little highlights at the bottom. Now again, the top of his lip, just pull that highlight up, the reflected highlight underneath. Same down on that side. Then the highlight on the bottom lip. And that's looking rather lovely. So now I'm just doing some last little tweaks, squinting my eyes so I can see where I need some slightly little darker shadows. Because when you squint you get to see the shadows a little bit clearer. So again, just need to pull the highlight up on that crease in the top of his head. But just pull it off and then just smooth it with my finger and it just settles it back down. And this shape from his nose comes up and you've got the curve of the glasses and you've got a little curve of that highlight. And then comes and brings down the cheek. Just fill that in a little bit. Again, the side of his cheek just coming down to his beard. And up the side of his head. I'm just using the flat of the tip of the pencil, and it's just allowing me to put in these detail lines that I need. So there are the little highlights on the nose and his brow. That's bringing that up really nicely. Darken that eyebrow down a bit, and this is really just faffing about now. But it's nice faffing about, it's drawing faffing about, and you're having fun. Softening and just deepening that shadow on that finger. Again, just softening the edge with the pencil. Feathering that dark in to the edge of the finger. And I have to say, this has been a real joy to do. We've now done all 3 Dumbledores, both from the Harry Potter movies and the young Albus Dumbledore, played by Jude Law in Fantastic Beasts, and they're all in the Harry Potter playlist. And that's absolutely fantastic. So this is Michael Gambon, and we've done Sir Richard Harris from the first film. And it really is just a lovely thing to do. Just drawing, the pleasure you get from drawing and the reward from the application and spending the time is just truly lovely. And I hope you've been having fun doing these drawings. But that, I think, is done. Anyway, I hope you've had fun. That's been fantastic doing that drawing with you. Drawing Albus Dumbledore, played by Michael Gambon. Do take care, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next drawing video. Ta-da.